Hello everyone, January 26th, 2023. Yes, it's winter in Canada, and if you're watching this video in the summer, well, it'll be winter soon and you'll see me in these types of outfits. And of course, the famous Canadian winter. We're talking about intra-company transfer. What is it? Who can use it? Why was it even created by the Canadian government in the first place? And how can you be eligible and how could you potentially utilize it for immigration if you're a business owner, a shareholder, executive, or key staff member of a company? And that's what we're going to be looking out for and reviewing today in our live session. We're just checking to make sure we're live everywhere. We, double checking here. Yeah, seems like we're live. And of course, this is a live stream. No editing, no fancy background. Yeah, that's a workspace. That's where actual immigration happens from our office side. And yeah, no special effects and nothing I can take back. This is 100% raw live immigration, folks. And let's jump into it. I'll do a quick introduction if you don't know already. My name is Reza and I work with the Ingwe Immigration Company and team here in Canada, helping applicants move here, whether it's for yourself, your kids, your siblings, your spouse, your business, or all of the above. We do make it happen. Let me make this clear. I'm not an actual full-time YouTuber, although some of you have argued me on that point, but I work hands-on with our licensed team, working on actual applications and communicating with immigration departments and overseas embassies on a daily basis, representing our clients in these types of cases. These videos are for the purpose of sharing our hands-on immigration knowledge with our worldwide audience. And if you're thinking about immigrating to Canada, well, we're here to help. Get a free email assessment with us by filling out the form down below this video for eligible applicants. Let's jump into it, folks. It's the one and oldest immigration. It's one of the oldest immigration programs in Canada, and it's called the Intra Company Transfer. And many countries, if you already know, have similar programs. The US has it, the UK has it, most of Europe has it. Literally, this is a very popular program. In Canada, it's also called the C12 LMIA exempt work permit under the International Mobility Program. Today, we will be covering the basics of the Intra-Company Transfer Program and demystifying anything that you may have heard or has been promised to you, which could be not true. We've covered ICT before in many of our business immigration videos, but today we will consider this as the ABCs, or the basics, or the foundation of what this program is, who it's for, and how it can be utilized. It's actually not designed for immigration. And if you're not familiar about the program, the sole purpose of this program when it was designed was transferring key staff and executives between company branches inside and outside of Canada. And the same way other countries utilize this program as well. It's not designed for immigration, as I said. It's only for company branch transfers based on work permits. However, it is a very popular program for business owners, executives, and key staff to transfer to Canada with a work permit, which can be combined with other immigration programs, such as express entry or anything else, when you're inside the country, to eventually convert to permanent immigration, such as permanent residency in Canada, right? Here are the requirements to qualify for this program, the Intra-Company Transfer, also known as C12. The first requirement, you, the applicant, or the parent company, have an ongoing dealing or business in Canada. This is not mandatory, this is optional. Or, so you've got to meet one of these. You've visited Canada before, recently, and established research about business, contacts, and activities and you've decided to set up a branch, subsidiary, or joint venture. Or you have a Canadian joint venture partner who will start and operate the business before you apply in the same industry, field, and activity as the parent company, and it makes logical sense. So not just, oh, I've got my cousin, he's going to be a joint venture partner. Now out of the blue, I want to set up a branch in Canada. You will not be approved, especially if you're not from a visa-exempt country. So you need to meet one of these criteria, either visit Canada, have ongoing dealings, transactions with Canada, or a logical joint venture, not just any joint venture. The reasoning for this first requirement is that the ultimate goal and intention of this program is for business setup and significant economic benefit for Canada. If the case does not make sense for intra-company transfer, the visa officer will refuse the applicant, right? And the main points to consider is that the company is the main applicant, and as a company, you're transferring over. And you could be a sole proprietorship overseas, correct? But not just a single person. You need to have a whole company with payroll and so forth, which we'll cover later on in this video, right? What is the most ideal ICT case from the point of view of an RCC officer who's reviewing cases to understand their perspective about this program, right? So the way this program has been designed is to help multinationals or mid-sized companies move and transfer key staff between in and out of borders, such as Canada. So they've got overseas entities and they've got branches around the world. So you need to transfer over these key staff or shareholders. And a lot of these multinationals use that on a regular basis, like Procter & Gamble, Google, Amazon, Uber, millions of companies. You don't need to be in that level, but that's why this program was created in the first place, to allow companies to grow and expand into these economic markets, right? That's why the US has it, Europe has it, and UK and all these other countries, for companies to grow. And what does this give them in return? Well, economic benefit. They can hire locals. It will create economic growth for the country that's hosting the branch, joint venture, or subsidiary, right? And that's what an ideal application looks like. Not an application that looks like, oh, I want to immigrate. I'm the business owner or a shareholder. I want to come to Canada. They don't like that. If your company is too small, if it doesn't have the right financials, which we'll cover, and it makes no logical sense that you woke up in the middle of the night and decided, hey, out of the blue, I've never visited this country, but I'm going to set up a branch. It's not going to work unless you're an American or from one of those countries, right? So the second requirement, significant economic benefit for Canada is mandatory. Investing in the Canadian economy, such as hiring Canadians, servicing underpopulated regions or communities, and so forth. Just to give you a few examples. There is an exemption for free trade agreement countries, so you don't have to necessarily hire if you're from one of these free trade agreement countries. The third requirement, all funds and investments should be coming from the parent company, not the individual. Even if you're 100% owner of the company, the money should not be coming from you into the company. It has to come from the business, the overseas headquarters and parent company. The fourth requirement, the business account in Canada should be funded with significant portion of the total investment. So if it's less than $200,000, well, they need to see that money, right? Especially if you're from Southeast Asia, Middle East, or Africa. These are the places that you need to show the money, especially in Canada, right? And that's perhaps why you would visit Canada first. If you're from countries such as Europe or US, no, it's not as strict. Requirements. The fifth one, the new branch, subsidiary, or joint venture should have a location of business inside Canada before an application is submitted. A place's business could be for retail, like brick and mortar, an office lease agreement, a virtual shared office agreement, right? You need a place of business booked, signed, and a deposit already placed. Sixth requirement, if the Canadian entity is not set up yet or operational, only one overseas applicant can transfer over with a work permit until the first year of operations is completed. And the Canadian government typically likes a ratio of 30 to 40% foreign workers versus Canadians. So if you've got 3 Canadians, you will have 1 foreigner, for example, right? It should always be more Canadians than foreigners. So if you want to transfer 4 people over later on after your first year, they like to see at least 6 to 7 Canadians working for you. If you're just coming as 1 person, well, that's fine. But if you want to bring in 2, especially after the first year, not the first year, you can't do it in the first year unless it's very special circumstances. That second person means that you do need more Canadians than foreigners. What are the red flags from the point of view of the IRCC officer under the ICT program? Well, the operating company in the parent company overseas or headquarters has no staff. It's just you. You have nobody on payroll except yourself or maybe one other person. And the capital, another red flag is it's trading capital. Like literally you're trading a few $100,000 in your capital, you're transferring over to a Canadian bank, and you're going to be trading, cross trading. Again, these are not really huge benefits for Canada. Transferring over more foreign staff in your first year than when you're setting up the branch, that's also a no-go, a red flag. No previous Canadian visit or business transaction or logic behind setting up a Canadian branch. It appears to be an intention to apply for status, which means for immigration, for PR, for work permit. They don't like that. They will refuse that. Little or no significant economic benefit for Canada. Again, that would be a red flag. Apply to transfer key staff or executives from your overseas parent company who have not been on payroll for a minimum of 1 year in your parent company already. So you just hired them 6 months ago, you got your brother coming in or sister just hired today and they want to transfer over to Canada to the new branch. That's not going to work. It doesn't meet the minimum eligibility criteria. Brand new overseas parent company with no prior financials or history. So you literally registered the business 6 months ago. You're barely, showing any financials. That's not also going to be a red flag. There can be exceptions if you're growing exponentially in the 6 months, hiring and the financials look solid. But other than that, you got to be careful. Parent company has no profits or positive or declared cash flow. That's huge. So you've got 30 people, 20 people, no matter what, and you're setting up a branch, but your financials don't justify it. You're making $10,000 a year declared profits, and you're planning to invest what, $150,000 or more in Canada? It just doesn't make sense, right? And it's got to make sense. Think about it this way. In immigration, don't worry about all the regulations. It's eligibility criteria. That's easy to read. But what is the officer thinking? Well, they've got a checklist for eligibility. Then they have to be assured that this is not for the purposes of immigration, or at least it should look legitimate. That's how you want to handle it. Here's the frequently asked questions about ICT. Is this a permanent residency program? Well, no, of course not. But it can be combined with provincial nominee and express entry and other programs for you or your spouse to convert to PR later on inside Canada, perhaps after the first year. What is the minimum investment amount under this ICT program, the Intra Company Transfer? There is no minimum investment that has been published by RCC or documented. However, each case is scrutinized by the government to understand what benefit it brings to Canada. So you could have other benefits where you are servicing very rural regions, so you don't need to invest as much. But again, if you're going to major hubs and you're investing $30,000, no, there is no benefit for Canada in that. Obviously, going to Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, major cities, you have to have the investment which makes sense for the business and for the Canadian economy. So what we usually say could be $150,000 and higher, depending on, are you looking to convert to PR or not later on. Can I receive a 2 to 3 year work permit upon the first application approved? No, right? if the business is not running already in Canada, you will get only a 1 year. If it's operational and you've got staff, it's making revenue, paying taxes, yes, you can get a multi-year work permit on your first application. If you get a 1 year, after the first year, you can get another 2-year renewal. What happens if I don't implement the business plan during the first year? Well, you may not receive the renewal of your work permit when you're inside Canada, right? So that's one of the criteria for renewal, to make sure that the operation is ongoing. And remember, another criteria which many people miss is that parent company, the headquarters overseas, has to continue to operate, because the Canadian entity is just a branch or a subsidiary. The parent company is the core. So if you're the key manager or shareholder, you've got to have a vice president or senior manager that will continue that business while you're gone. And during each renewal, you need to prove that that business is still ongoing overseas. Can I register a company remotely without visiting Canada and being a non-resident shareholder? Yes, you can. In 3 provinces in Canada, you can remotely register business without actually visiting. What are the requirements from the overseas company to check your eligibility for the ICT? Well, profit loss, income statement, and balance sheet. And of course, your payroll, full-time payroll report. How many people do you have on payroll? Are you declaring all your taxes? If not, all your income and profits, we have to do an internal audit through a CP or CA firm in your company, in your country. We won't declare it to your government, but we have to declare it to this government that, okay, they declared $100,000 or $200,000 revenue and maybe $50,000 of profits, but in actual fact, they did $800,000 sales and they've made over, $250,000 of profit. In the audit report, we can justify that. Okay. Any dealings with Canadian customers or suppliers, again, that would be a positive. It's not mandatory. The profiles of the applicants and executives who plan to transfer to the Canadian branch. We have to check that to make sure they have the profile to receive the work permit. So A, the business is eligible and they can set up the branch, but the person who you're sending the first year should also have a pretty decent profile and be on payroll or show that they are being paid and are completely involved with the parent company for at least 1 year. What are the processing times for ICT work permit applications? Well, 4 to 6 months, depending on which embassy, which country you're applying from. Central South America could be faster, Europe much faster, US super fast, and Asia, Africa, Middle East a little bit slower. We're looking at 4.5 months minimum. You can also apply at the border here, flagpoling between the US and Canada if you're here with a valid visa or if you're visa exempt country, and that could take 2 to 5 hours. So literally, instead of waiting months, you could flagpole, get your ICT work permit from inside Canada. Okay, so I hope I've covered most of the basics of ICT, what you need. It's very logical, right? You're basically asking for permission to set up a branch of some sorts, and the country wants to know, Canada for example wants to know, what is it in for us, the Canadians, right? And you have the financial resources, and if your company is going to invest X amount, well, are you showing that in profits and revenue? Do you have enough people? Is it a big enough company? Or no, you're just trying to come in for immigration and gain status with your family. They don't like that part. So you got to make it look good. Even if you do want to immigrate, it doesn't matter. A lot of people use this program for immigration purposes, and it's possible. However, it should not look like you are looking for status as the main intention of this program. Again, folks, if you're thinking about immigrating, whether permanent, temporary, skilled immigration, LMIA exempt work permits, free trade agreements, study visas, investment, or family sponsorship, you are at the right place with us. I can guarantee you only one point. You will know what to expect, the entire process clearly laid out for you, all the risks identified, including costs. Our legal agreements are based on payment milestones, which is linked directly to your application progression. We do not take 100% advance payment for your Canadian immigration application. There will be no surprises in terms of expenses or costs, just results. We have a $1 million liability insurance, which protects you and us from mistakes or fraud, as well as a dedicated client trust account with their Canadian banks. Our team speaks over 8 languages, and we help applicants from over 47 different countries with their immigration, and this list is growing. Click the link below this video and get a free email assessment for eligible applicants if you're interested. And if you need a one-on-one consultation with me or any of my immigration team members at Ingwe, you can also book a session directly through our website, and the link is also included below this video when it's posted online. And if you've got questions, remember we're here weekly live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram on Thursdays 11 a.m. North America Eastern Standard Time, which is the local time here in Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Kingston, Miami, New York, New Jersey. No matter where, we are East Coast time, and we're here Thursdays answering your questions live on the spot for free. And of course, we are live right now, and if you're watching this later on, you'll be wondering, what is this guy doing? Well, yeah, there's a lot of people on YouTube right now asking questions. I'm going to answer their comments, their questions. We've got a lot of people, and that's what we're going to do right now. And that's part of the recording for this live stream on YouTube. And again, folks, if you're on Instagram or Facebook, I will not be able to see your questions or comments live because of the streaming platform that we're using. Let's jump in. Mohammed Khan says, good morning, sir. Good morning back to you, Mohammed. Bhupinder, hi, good morning. Bhupinder, you are a regular watcher. Nice, a viewer. Good to see you online. Totally, Chloe. Oh, that's a cool name. Good morning, Reza. Appreciate your realness on the lives. Almond says, hello, sir. I need to talk to you about ST. No problem. Tomorrow or Saturday, Almond. Nasreen Ebrahimi says, also known as Rosita. Hola, Reza June. Hola, back to you, Rosita. Safa says, hi, nice to see you again. Safa Saleh, nice to see you. I hope your startup application is going smoothly. Mohammed Khan, what's the difference between C12 and C11? C11 we use for self-employed. C12 is a company branch transfer. So a company is involved. In a C11, you, the applicant, are the main applicant. There's no company involved to transfer you. It's based usually on self-employed, and we use C11 especially for people who are self-employed, like single, and they have some kind of social or cultural benefit. Could also be economic. So if you're a writer, a self-employed professional, that's when we usually use C11. Bhupinder says, if the sole proprietor moves to Canada, how long should the parent company continue its business? Because small company business will be ultimately closed. True, Bhupinder, but remember, you've got to plan it correctly. Because one of the criteria is that the parent company continues to operate and be managed. So if you've got a company that's not, as big, you have to figure out how long do you need this ongoing back home until you can convert to PR. So if it takes 1.5 years to 2 years to convert to PR from your work permit, you've got to coordinate so at least there's some activity, or at least the company is registered and filing for taxes, bare minimum, right? Doesn't have to be super hyperactive, but it's got to exist. And the bank account. Safa Saleh says, do you think the work permit under SUV can be refused if you didn't visit Canada before? However, an essential application for SUV. No, Safa, it has nothing to do whether you visited Canada for startup visa. No, startup visa has no requirements to have any ties to Canada like the Intra Company Transfer. Startup visa is a federal program. It's a direct PR stream with an optional work permit, as you already know. So they will look at the profile of the applicant, travel history, financials, ties to home country, how legitimate the startup is, and what the plan is that you want to implement in Canada. And I've said this before, Safa, you probably think I'm a broken record. Plus what you've gotten accomplished with your startup already. Because if you haven't accomplished anything with the startup and it's just a business plan, you're saying, well, I'm going to come to Canada and do all this stuff, right? And you've never traveled to Canada or US or Europe, and your profile isn't quote unquote perfect according to the embassy, then that could be an issue. Bader Karim, hello Reza, question please. Is Canada a good country for business compared to other countries, Singapore, USA, UAE, and why? Thank you. Badir, it's a tough question. I'm a business person. I've done business in the UAE. I've done business in the US. I've lived in the UAE. I've had companies in the US. I've visited Singapore, not done a lot of business myself, but I know what you're talking about. To be honest with you, Badir, there is a certain stability here that may not be in some of these countries like UAE or Singapore. And if you convert to permanent residency with your family, those are the things people are looking for. In terms of business, no, the market in the US is huge. Why would you come to Canada, right? The US is huge in terms of the market size and the potential for revenue and sales and growth. The UAE is great. You know, they're going to introduce corporate tax, as you know. I don't know if it's 8 or 9%. Between the UAE and Canada, I like Canada better. Okay. But if you're doing like international trade, UAE is great, but Canada has more legitimacy, right? So compared to UAE, or if you're a trading company or Singapore, Canada has a name, a brand with it. But again, it depends what you're doing. Are you selling only cargo to Southeast Asia or Africa? Maybe Singapore, UAE is better. Are you planning to grow internationally? Maybe US is better. Canada is a smaller market than many countries like US, and it's like a younger brother of the US, right? And if you're looking for stability, it's good. But in terms of like growth of a business, I wouldn't rank it in the top 5. Be very frank with you. Bhupinder says, "Hi Raza, it was really nice meeting you on Zoom. I recommend everyone to book a meeting with her." Thanks, Bhupinder. Appreciate it. I can't advertise too much about myself online, on live, but thank you. It was great meeting you too, as well, Bhupinder. It's always excellent when I meet clients face to face. Samuel Osei Ovusu says, "Hello, Raza. I arrived in Canada on Monday on a visitor visa, but the immigration officer didn't stamp my passport. Should I be worried?" No, Samuel, that's normal. A lot of times they don't stamp. They registered in the system, so you've got to calculate 6 months from the time that you arrived. If they did not set a date on your passport that you're allowed to stay inside Canada. If you need to stay longer, you will need to apply for visitor record, which is an extension of your stay inside Canada. And of course, if your visitor visa, you can leave, come back later, and again potentially stay for 6 months if the officer at the border doesn't veto that. So you don't need to worry about the stamp. That's normal. It happens with half the cases. You just have to make sure you know your date and you keep track, okay? They have it in their system, so no worries about that. Mohammed Khan, work permit process time if you apply from inside Canada. Mohammed Khan, it depends. If you're doing an LMIA closed work permit, then it could take 4.5 months, okay? Sometimes 5, sometimes 4 from inside Canada. If you're flag polling, it can be hours at the US-Canadian border. If you're applying from overseas, LMI work permits could be 4.5 months. If it's LMI exempt work permits from outside of Canada, you can be looking, depending on where you're applying. I assume you're applying from somewhere in that, Southeast Asia region. So you would be looking at 4.5 to 5.5 months. Badir, from inside Canada, okay. Yeah, inside Canada, you look at 4.5, 5 months. Sometimes it takes longer. If you flagpole, in certain cases, you get it in hours at the US-Canada border. But all the work permits right now we're seeing from inside Canada are literally taking 4 to 5 months. TL says, Badir Karim says, appreciate it. No problem, Badir. That was my editorial of, is Canada a good place for business? Maybe, but it's not the best. TL, if you overstay your US visitor visa, would you have problems to visit in Canada? Yes, they see each other's immigration, TL. So that means Canada sees all US immigration notes about your case and vice versa. Bhupinder says, kindly read my full above message. Okay. Okay. Full message. I recommend everyone to book a meeting with Reza before finalizing his immigration journey. Yes, thank you, Bhupinder. Yeah, no problem. And you mentioned correctly as well that if you're a small company and you want to do intra-company transfer, obviously it's going to affect your parent company and you may close, right? And you got to calculate all these things, right? Are you doing a permanent move? What program to choose? How will it affect your income from overseas, from your parent company? You worked this hard for many years to establish a company like that, right? So that's very important, Bhupinder, and yeah, he promoted me to say you need to discuss with Reza before you finalizing your immigration journey. Thank you, Bhupinder. Muhammad Khan says, thank you, sir. Bhupinder said, really like your honesty. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you guys, it's it takes more effort not to be honest. When you're honest, you just tell people what's on your mind. It's easy and you don't need to remember what you told people. That's the best part about being honest. So we've talked about intra-company transfer, folks, today. What is it about? Who's eligible, right? How do you apply? Well, you can apply from overseas or inside Canada. And remember, the company is the main applicant, right? It's the company credentials with a business plan that, hey, we want to set up a subsidiary, joint venture, or branch. And you could buy a business too as an intra-company transfer. Don't forget, that's also optional, right? But if you've got a small company, no strong financials, literally just 2-3 people on payroll, intra-company transfer is not for you. Unless you're from a visa exempt country, then we would use perhaps some free trade agreement, LMIA exempt work permit streams, right? And again, folks, if you're watching and you're wondering, what is this guy saying? What is his background? Well, the background, it's a mess. This is a live stream. We're answering everyone's Canadian immigration questions, and we're here every Thursday. Safa says, RCC stated 40 weeks from UAE for work permit processing time. Is this correct, or it's just a max time? It's a max time, Safa, but from the UAE and GCC, as I've always said in the videos, we've seen the longest processing times are from GCC and Africa. That's what we've been seeing, right? So there's been people on our live stream which have been waiting like 6-7 months sometimes for an intercompany transfer work permit from like applying from UAE, right? Startup visa, I would say let's put 6 months as a rough idea. I think it could happen sooner because the IRCC is planning to release policies to clean up the backlog of visitor visas, study permits, and work permits. So we could see an improvement, Safa, in the work permit processing. But again, the Canadian embassy in Abu Dhabi is one of the worst, and the whole GCC region is not exactly our favorite. Samuel Osel Owusu, what is the ideal time to apply for open work permit in Canada as a visitor? A week, a month, or immediate? What is the ideal time for open? Well, you need to be eligible, Samuel, for an open work permit, right? Open work permits are usually if you are graduating international student at an eligible program and institution, or you're the spouse or common law partner of an international student or full-time international foreign worker, or perhaps asylum seekers as well who have applied. So you can't just apply for an open work permit. Because there's very specific restrictions for that. Safa says, thanks. We'll see you when I arrive in Canada. Yeah, Safa, let me know. I am roaming around Canada all the time. If I'm at the right place at the right spot and you're there, would love to take you for coffee and drinks and see what's been your experience with startup visa. But generally, it's a very controversial program, and as everyone knows, the approval rates are not great. Travel vlogger. If I buy a cleaning franchise, can I apply for BC Canada immigration? Potentially, yes, travel vlogger. You have to see, are you doing a federal work permit, right? Or are you planning for a provincial nominee program like BC? It has to meet the minimum investment and the net worth, right? So those are key criteria to consider. So you've got a plan, like Bhupinder said, you've got a plan. You can't just go buy something and be like, yeah, that's great. That's kind of like buying a car and not having like, a driver's license. You need to have this stuff ready and plan ahead. So if anyone wants, of course, you can contact our office. But we are here for you folks every Thursday, answering your questions live on YouTube. But obviously the stream is going in on Instagram and Facebook as well. Okay. So let's see. What else is there before we sign off today? Again, we talked about intra-company transfer. This video will be posted after this live is over. We talked about what are the requirements, the preliminary steps, who's eligible, who isn't, and what is the basis of this program in the first place, right? Everyone says intra-company transfer. What is it about, right? It's got to be a company applying. The main focus is the company, not you. You would be secondary as the person who's being transferred. Obviously, if you have 10 refusals and don't have a good profile, that can obviously affect the application. But if the company is not eligible and if it doesn't make sense, you don't need to be an immigration expert. Okay? Just think about it. You've got a distribution company in your home country. And let's say you've got good financials, you've got like 10 people, 20 people, very strong, right? And you're selling internationally now too. And then suddenly you wake up and be like, I want to set up in Canada. You've done no business research. You haven't visited. You don't have a partner, an agent, or a customer or vendor in Canada already that you've been transacting with. It makes no sense. And that's what the IRCC officers will look at. And remember, folks, IRCC officers do not have PhDs. They're typically not entrepreneurs. They're not business persons. They've probably never owned their own business. I'm pretty confident about that. Not 100%, but 80%. So it has to just make sense. It's not rocket science, okay? A lot of these applications, it's not rocket science. It just has to make sense. And I've said this in a lot of my videos before. It's got to be like a good movie script. Have you ever watched a movie and halfway through you change the channel or just kind of got bored and start playing on your phone? Your application should not be that. Your application should actually be a good story to read and be entertaining. Okay, folks. Badir Karim says, you're the kind of person who I can get inspired and learn from. As it would be an honor to meet you. I sent you a LinkedIn invitation. Have a good day. No problem, Badir. The only issue is I do have a lot of obligations and with our office, with our clients. So it is difficult to meet up with everyone. So, thank you for the invitation. We can stay in touch, but I may not be able to accept a one-on-one online invitation with everyone. Because of the demand, obviously, we're just streamlining it through a website for people who book with us. Gustavo Henry says, hello, Reza. I wanted to be in this live so much, but my work meeting just finished. No problem, Gustavo. I remember you from the last session. You were talking about the startup and you want to come and when should you apply for your work permit? Of course, Gustavo. So we'll see you next Thursday, everyone. Again, we cannot see Facebook, Instagram questions or comments. We can only see them on YouTube, but our platform is streaming live every Thursday on the spot. And if I can't make it, well, one of my colleagues will make it, okay? That's our commitment to you, to be here to clarify this maze called Canadian immigration, okay? I'm a first generation immigrant. 99% of my office staff are, and we're here to help you and guide you, okay? Thanks again, folks. We're going to sign off and be back next Thursday. We got a whole slew of videos and content for you next week to watch and to interact with us. Okay, perfect. See you later. Great seeing everyone. Bhupinder as well, and of course all the people who joined us today: Safa, Gustavo, travel vlogger, Muhammad Khan, TL, Badir Karim, Samuel Oseovusu. And I hope Safa Sal, basically, and totally Chloe. I love that. And of course, Almon. Almon is probably a VIP customer. We cannot forget him. And of course, Rosita. I'm assuming Rosita right now is busy, but thank you for everyone for joining us. Stay tuned. See you next Thursday at 11 a.m. Toronto local time. Bye-bye now.